Good evening and welcome to another episode of Lin Denise Experience Presents Candid Christian Conversations, a place for and about the currency of connection. That simply means the exchange of seed. I'm so honored that we've created a platform where you will always get to hear authentic voices sharing transparent experiences that we pray give you hope and tools for your journey. I'm so excited tonight. I'm excited because we're continuing with our August series in Authors Symposium themed A Written Word. Tonight, tonight, I have the pleasure of having a woman of God on the show who is truly a voice for the kingdom, a voice for this generation and for the generations to come. Pastor, preacher, author, kingdom creative, a vessel anointed and used by God, the wife of one husband. She is an amazing woman with an amazing heart and an even more dynamic testimony. Would you guys please help me welcome my guest on tonight? The author of Misery in Ministry and owner of Diamond Publishing, Miss Kecia Taylor. Welcome to the show, Kecia. How are you tonight?
I'm good. That was exciting. Who is she talking about?
I'm so excited to have you on the show. We are actually doing something tonight that we have never done before. For all of you that's tuned into the show, we always have a panel of people on the show. We always share the platform with more than one voice. Tonight, I'm so excited to be featuring Kecia on tonight as we talk about her new book, soon to be released, Misery in Ministry. And I'm so excited that you came on to talk with us about the show. Kecia, why don't you go ahead and tell our viewers something about yourself?
Well, first of all, thank you again for having me, and thank you for this opportunity to be here with you. I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm just going to be real because one of my sayings is that I'm too real to be fake and too flawed to be phony.
Come
So
on, yes.
I am very nervous, but we're going to get through this. And I see my family are there joining, so that gives me some.
Yes.
But I am. I've been out there. People know me as Pastor Kecia, Preacher Kecia, Evangelist Kecia. I've written a few books before this one, and I've been in ministry probably now almost more than half my life. I'll be 50 next year, so I've been in
Wow.
ministry for a long time. I grew up in church. I am. Not so much a preacher's kid in that my parents weren't preachers, but my grandparents were in ministry. Both of my grandfathers were deacons. My grandmother on my father's side was a church mother. My grandmother, my mom's side, is an evangelist and was a church mother as well. So I grew up in church and I got saved, accepted the Lord Jesus Christ at an early age, about 12 years old, I think I was.
Yes.
So I experienced a lot of different parts of ministry, being an usher, in the choir director, dabbled in trying to be a musician, took organ lessons, um, did like everybody else in the small upcoming church, played the drums a little bit, taught Sunday school, altar work, and then even from our local church in the district, I did altar work on state level and national level. I did altar work. So serving in ministry, I had a very solid foundation in it. And then later, as I got a little older, no older, into my early 20s, is when I acknowledged the call to preach, actually preach. But it wasn't like today. It wasn't you get saved in microwave ministry, then all of a sudden you're in the pulpit, or you're telling the pastor you want to preach and go start a church and all that kind of stuff. I really can say I came up in the ranks. of ministry.
And I know about that because we came up through the same
Absolutely.
through the
Yeah.
same range. And
Yep.
you
Yep.
definitely touched something when you said it's very different than today's generation.
Hmm.
Sometimes we get so caught up with the title and we go running with the title, but we
Right.
don't get the processing that we need, and
Absolutely.
that's so imperative.
Hmm.
The title of this book.
Okay. Here we go.
Listen, you ready?
Let's go.
Let's go. The title of this book, Misery in Ministry.
Hmm.
Now, you know that sounds real contradictory to the church folks.
Oh, absolutely.
Because how can you have misery and ministry or misery in ministry?
Mhm.
That's not something that we talk about publicly, right?
Exactly. That's the problem.
Right. That is the problem. Tell us how you came up with misery in ministry.
Well, let's see. This particular book was birthed, let's say, out of a lot of different situations and circumstances. And so what happened was I started a project. Oh, stop it, Wayne Jr. That's my husband. He's gonna be one to distract me.
That's my
Um,
brother.
Yes, that's family. But this the issue, it came out because I was actually part of a book compilation, and writing is my first love, and so I went to a book launch last year, and in support of a friend, and there I was inspired to get back to writing. So I figured the best way or the easiest way for me to do it was to be a part of a project. Well, I became part of the project. I signed on, and the chapter limit was like 2,500 words. Well, first of all, for a preacher and a writer, that's not a lot of space. It's not a lot of space to get your message across. So, so I knew as I was writing that chapter that's called Tried by Fire, and that book will be released next month.
Mhm.
But when I finished it, I knew, okay, it's time to go back and put together some of this other information I had and add to the journey that I was on. And so, misery and ministry. So, what happened? I started writing, but I still didn't really put it all together. I actually started writing a chapter in this book, or a couple of chapters in this book, back in 2013.
Mhm.
And I was married and going through a very hard time. That was my second marriage. I married a man who ended up going to prison. I don't want to say a man. I married a friend who ended up going to prison. And so in the book, I talk about that journey and that experience being a pastor, and you married someone in prison, and all of the backlash, and just even the experience of that marriage that went along with it. So during that time, I actually became suicidal,
Wow.
and I wrote about that, but I never did anything with it. It just stayed like in my journals and in my notebooks and everything. But what happened this year, Mother's Day, May 10th, my family members. I saw two of my family members almost get killed. My brother's estranged wife. She actually ran over my niece, in resulting in her right leg being amputated, and she's a college basketball player. And then she also stabbed my brother twice. So going through that process with them, watching God spare their lives,
Yes.
and trying to go through healing with them, and the process of my niece being hospitalized for several weeks, months actually. It became a and then feeling the, it's hard for me to say it, but it's reality, the mantle
Yes.
of caring for my family. I i needed an outlet outside of that, and writing, again, my first love, and it was therapeutic for me. And then I also felt the unction that it's time, you watch someone almost lose their life. It's time to make sure that you empty out
Right.
everything that were called to do and that you need to do. So a lot of people would like to see me just, well, right now we're in a pandemic and it's not a lot of churches open, but people
Yes.
would expect me to just, when I talk about ministry, to jump back in a pulpit and
Right.
go to preaching again. But
Yeah.
God has shown me a different way to minister and to be just as effective. And what I say now is I have the pleasure and the benefit of touching lives directly through this way of ministry. So that's how the book came to fruition. It's been lying dormant for a long time.
Yeah. And let's talk about that. Let's just, I just want to touch that for touch something for a little bit. We're going to come back to that because I would like to give more information about Victoria
Okay.
at the end of the show. But let's just talk about that because if we are honest,
Mm-hmm.
and we know each other, we are honest.
Mm-hmm. Right?
If we are honest, when we are going through things of that magnitude,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people expect us to immediately go into laying of the hands, praying, remembering who we are as ministers in the call. But as you said, when we're going through things, to see something like that happen, to have to deal with not just the marriage that you were in and as a pastor and him being incarcerated, but then on through the journey more recently with the things that the family has gone through and watching the journey for Victoria. How did you, even though writing is an outlet,
Mm-hmm.
as a minister,
Mm-hmm.
how do you cope with that? How have you coped with that?
I've learned, and I talk about it in the book. I am an advocate of therapy, and I learned through therapy one of my strengths, and that is I show up in chaos. I show up in crisis. That's my I don't retreat and I don't back down and I show up. So even the night that it happened, my brother called me after he had been stabbed. He called me, and I rushed over to the scene, and um, I immediately, just okay, made sure he was okay, and went checked on my niece, and I had my moments, but I still kept it together, and just kept it together with the family, dealing with the police, and all of these things going on. And I remember on the way home, I told my son, I said, it may seem like I'm strong right now. This is a part of who I am. I show up in chaos and I show up in the crisis, but tomorrow I'm gonna break. And that's exactly what I did. And so I've learned that it's okay to have my moment, it's okay, do what you have to do in the moment. It doesn't mean I'm ignoring. And that's what I've learned, not to ignore, not to suppress reality.
Mm-mm.
You can't do that. Not to pretend like it's not happening, it doesn't hurt, it's not ugly, you're not angry, it's not painful, may have to work some things out and deal and help in the moment, and be that be the strength for everybody else in the moment, but tomorrow I know it's coming, and it did. And so I've learned that's how I handle that, and that's who I am now.
Right.
That's what I definitely therapy has taught me how to understand me.
And we need that because even as a minister, sometimes, we've done ourselves a disservice. Can I just say that? I
Yep.
might get some inbox. Listen,
Let's
do not
go.
inbox me, okay? Don't inbox me. As
Mhm.
the church, we have done a disservice to each other thinking that we can pray things away.
Oh, absolutely.
Can't pray everything away. We can pray about it, but we can't pray everything away. It's important. Therapy is also important part of us taking care of ourselves, of us showing up for
Right.
ourselves, because oftentimes as ministers, and I'm sure that the ministers that are on here viewing, anyone in ministry, we carry the burden of showing up. We
Yep.
have to be there for people. As a pastor, your experience as a pastor, you're getting calls all night long. You're being called to the hospital and to pray for a family, or in the need, in time of need for someone's family. But it's important that we begin to show up for ourselves. And I have to say that this book, listen, you are not going to get me to cry on here tonight, okay?
Don't do it.
We're not doing that. So, this book is such an amazing book. I want to get into some of the chapters of the book, and I want to encourage you all. You can pre-order this book right now. We're gonna get to that. But before we get to that, you can pre-order this book right now. I want to begin to talk about some of the chapters in the book. This was something that was healing for me. I am in a place, though I grew up in church, I am a preacher's kid, I am now an ordained minister myself. There's still some residue that has to be healed. There's still some growing in places that I need this blueprint, that I needed to read this book needed to do that for me. And so I want to get into some of the chapters of the book. Is that okay? We're not going to give everything away.
Okay, no.
Not everything, but let's get into some chapters of this book. One of the chapters in the book is entitled Abandonment. Listen, we got a whole lot of that going on in the church. People wrestling with abandonment. Kecia, tell us about that and what brought that chapter on.
Well, in that chapter, I deal with the fact that, I was married, and he went back to prison. And it made me feel like, after everything I'd done to be there for him, after all of the support and all of the sacrifices I made financially, mentally, emotionally, my time, my name, folks didn't understand how I could be married as a pastor, that powerful preacher, and then you go marry somebody in prison. So, I sacrificed so much, and I thought, because I made that type of sacrifice for him, he would in turn live a life that wouldn't cause him to go back to prison. But that wasn't the case. And so I felt like he left me, even though what he did had nothing to do with me, but I felt like what he did to go back to prison, he left me. And so then it reminded me of my father. My father, who's deceased, he died when I was 9 years old. And he, whatever demons he had to fight, I'm not sure exactly his exact cause of death. Some, say that he was in his truck, and it was a truck accident. Some people say it was intentional. Some people say it was an accident. Some people say he fell asleep. Some people say he was drinking. I don't know. But I grew up feeling like he left me.
Yes.
So I carried a lot of feelings of abandonment that I never understood or got help about. And so those feelings carried over in ministry.
Yeah.
So what happened in ministry, when you're a pastor, it's inevitable. People are going to come and go. They're going to be there for a season. You do your best to mentor them, guide them, pray with them. You want to see the best outcome for them. And for whatever reason, they leave. If you're not careful, you'll internalize it and take it personal.
Yes.
And you'll feel like, but I've done it. I've done all of this stuff for you. And I fed you when you didn't have food. And I gave you money to pay your PG&E, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, you owe me loyalty because I was there for you. But those really are triggers and issues of abandonment. And I feel like there's signs that you can see signs in pastors of, when they start tripping because they have some um, un, unattended issues that they're dealing with. So they start looking at people funny, they start lashing out at people and putting their business out and cursing them when they leave, saying it wasn't God. But, people are making the best decisions for their lives and their
Right.
family lives. And it has nothing to do with the pastor sometimes. Sometimes it is. Sometimes maybe it's not safe for them to be in that environment anymore. But whatever the reason is, if a pastor has some unhealed issues that they haven't dealt with, then they're gonna lash out. They'll become deceptive. They'll become manipulative. And look, you talking about not getting inboxes. I wrote this book now because I don't have a pastor right now other than my husband. So I don't have anybody that I have to be afraid of getting kicked off their roster. Not
Mm-mm.
doors. I don't care about preaching and speaking engagements, all that kind of stuff. So I have to be real because my purpose right now is to help people get better and to heal because I've seen too much, too many
And
people
that's
manipulated.
that's one of our issues is that we are not real. We are not transparent,
Right.
and we have to be aware, even as ministers, as preachers, and even some pastors that I know that are connected to the spirit of rejection. I saw someone post the other day, and I think we had talked previously about this, and they said something to the effect of just because of you can still be friends with the person that leaves the church.
Right. It's not a gang.
It is
You
not,
know,
listen, because they left the church, they are not going to hell with tar paper panties on, okay?
that's right.
So you can still be friends with someone that leave the church. You don't have to demonize them, but when you
No.
are in a place where you have those unresolved issues, where there is residue of abandonment, where rejection, the spirit of rejection is resting on you,
Mhm.
we have to be careful
We
of
do.
walking in those shoes. We have to be careful of um, putting on other people what's really in us. How did you begin to handle what you were feeling with the abandonment? How did you begin to curve that? When did you recognize that it may not be that, but it may be abandonment? It may not be the narrative that I thought it was, but it may
Mhm.
actually be me and the abandonment that I've been feeling.
Oh, it was a long time before I recognized that. I mean, and my journey is in the book. I didn't recognize it, unfortunately, while I was pastoring. That's why I'm talking about it now.
Right.
I didn't. A lot of these revelations and understanding that I have now, I didn't have it when I was pastoring. Because while I was pastoring and while I was going through, people were saying, "Keep preaching." People were saying, "Just keep going." Keep taking care of God's work and he'll take care of yours. Just keep, I prayed, Lord, keep my filter tonight, Jesus.
Come on, let that filter go. Let it go.
Okay,
Let it
but
go now. Go
people
on,
who
let
know
it
me
go.
know me. They it's like stay on the pole. That's what I call it. They when they want you preaching and running around and to benefit them and to, come raise money and you preach the house down because
Listen,
they're trying to raise money for this one and that one and it's gonna put some money in your pocket and all. They got you on the pole. So it was like stay on the pole,
wow.
keep preaching,
Hmm.
but you're powerful, keep preaching. But you're powerful, God is gonna bless you. So I kept preaching and I kept going. But this it wasn't connected in my heart. I was broken. I was preaching and I was broken. I was preaching and I was still insecure. I was preaching and I didn't understand what was going on and I had questions of God and I didn't understand why. And those are I talked about a lot at Prophetic Worship Center. That's the name of my church that I
Come
pastor.
on.
I used to talk about
Wow.
how we sweep things under the rug, or it's not good to sweep things under the rug. Because you think about, sweeping things under the rug in your house, instead of picking it up and taking the garbage out, just sweep it under the rug. Okay, do it again the next day. Just sweep it under the rug. And so it's covered. You may not see it, but it's under that rug. It's there.
It's still
And if
there.
you're doing it, what's going to happen? It's going to eventually, it's going to grow.
Gonna pile up.
One day, you're going to walk across it and you're going to trip. And that's what I would tell people. We keep sweeping things under the rug. We're going to start tripping.
Right.
I
I see our sister Kecia on here tonight. Kecia said, "Amen. This is not a game. We in church. This is not a game." I see my really, really good friend and sister, one of my best friends on here, Shamila. She said, "We're bleeding. We see you bleeding, but keep going.
Right.
We see you bleeding, but keep going." And it's important that we begin to recognize when we are bleeding. And sometimes we have to take control of that. Right. Because it is like you said, even though they might not like the illustration, but it is almost like, it's like stay on the pole, keep going, do what you're doing, right, so that we can benefit, not for the benefit of you, not for your health, not for your wholeness. And we have to begin to draw some boundaries. There must be demarcation, even in ministry. When we need to be healed, we need to step back in order to heal so that we're not bleeding on other people, because you can still get a word out. Now, I know when I was going through a relationship where I was experiencing extreme domestic violence and still going to church on a praise and worship team. I was the assistant superintendent of the Sunday school, but still going home and worried about, was I going to have some peace that night? You know what I'm saying? Am I going to be fighting that night? We have to be whole. We have to get into a place, even as a church, where we make it okay for someone to come in and say, I'm bleeding.
Right.
And then not be preached over the pulpit, gone around the neighborhood before we dismiss. We need to be able to do that, because even as preachers and ministers, we are still humans.
Right.
We're still humans. There's still humanity that has to be addressed. I want to look at another chapter in this amazing book.
Okay.
It's an amazing book.
Thank you.
Another chapter. I love the chapter abandonment. I also love, there's another chapter in there that you have named daddy issues.
Yep.
Tell us about it.
Well, like I said a little, touched on it a little earlier, how my father died when I was 9. And that left such a void, in my heart, in my life. It just, it left this void. And sadly, him dying, my mother, he was abusive to my mother. So I loved him, even though what I do remember of him was violent. But I remembered how handsome he was and how gorgeous of a man he was, tall, as we used to say, light-skinned, muscular. He's a strong man, he's a, manly man, but he had his own demons, that he had to fight. But I didn't understand that. And so I would hear stories from other family members of how funny he was and how, much fun they would have being with him. But I didn't know that part of him. I just knew he left me. Right. So because of that, and I was thinking about it earlier, I can't even recall being hugged by my father. I just don't have a memory of it. I don't remember what it felt like to be in my dad's arms. So you grow up with that type of void, and then you go through life, as a young lady, as a teenager, and because I grew up in the apostolic church, we didn't wear makeup, didn't wear pants, didn't wear jewelry. That was on my mom's side of the family. My Kojic side of the family, my dad's side, they wore jewelry and a little bit of makeup or whatever. So it was depending on what organization things were a sin. That was confusing in itself. But anyway, so I always dressed, I looked older. I dressed, like a lady, like a woman, but I was young, and as a result, older men became attracted to me.
Mm.
And so daddy issues deals with how I sought comfort in the arms of men, not not just for sex, even though in exchange, because that's what they wanted. I
Mhm.
just wanted to feel my a man wrap their arms around me,
Right.
and the man make me feel love, not make me feel like a woman, because I wasn't a woman yet. But for me, because of that void, I was comforted by being in the arms of a man, even if that meant in exchange I had to give him my body. So I grew up with what I didn't even realize for a long time, and I think probably not until really writing the book, that I had major daddy issues, and so I would look to leaders in church to be that role, to play that role. I looked up to them and I expected them. Not anything. I was never one who was attracted to the preachers or the elders or anything. That wasn't me. That didn't work for me. I wasn't. Um, in fact, I talk about the elder, my husband, when he approached me, I was like, dude, I'm not even interested.
Right.
I just that wasn't me. So, but my expectation was for them to be, in a father type role. And I bit into, how the preachers, even though they're not old enough to be your father, they'll call you daughter.
Mhm.
I fell for that for a little while, but at some point, because I started seeing things that didn't line up with them being a father, like how do you want me to call you dad or father, in the
Incestuous.
gospel, but I have to pay you, I have to buy your dinner as a female. If you're a real father, then I expect you to treat me like a daughter. And
Mhm.
to me, a father would take care of his daughter and treat her like a lady.
And not even just that, but even looking a certain way. You ain't supposed to be looking at me like that. That's incestuous, father.
And
So
then that's it.
to so it is that's imperative too. And I understand what you're saying, even with the daddy issues. I had those. There was my pastor who was not my blood, but that's who raised me. That's who my dad is. But I still had daddy issues. And I
Mhm.
often say, I talk with my daughter about it. I didn't become a loose woman, but I learned how to be bait.
Exactly.
I learned how to be bait. And so
Right.
even now to this day, because of some of those things and
Mhm.
some of the things that was attached to that, I'm very leery of even talking to men in the church. Can we just talk about this tonight? Can we just talk? Is that okay?
Oh, right.
Okay. I'm even leery of talking even to men in the church
Mhm.
because of not feeling covered. So when I kind of avoid shaking their hand, or if I speak, when I walk away, I don't walk away, I back away or slide through a pew to keep from being tagged like, oh, she's flirting with this man. You know, as church people, we really we have some things to fix and to correct. But just as a woman, and I know for myself, those daddy issues. Again,
Mhm.
I didn't become a loose one, but I certainly learned how to
Right.
be bait. Oh, is that
Right.
what you want? Okay, if that's
Mhm.
what you want, then
Right.
I'm
What's
gonna
the
I'm gonna let you think that
right?
because you're gonna have to do this first. Like, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? But all
Mhm.
of that came from those daddy issues because it's a way that God created us. We're
Mhm.
ever connected. Even though I had someone in my life who I loved, who was a great example, who taught me, who corrected me, who loved me, uh, the way that God connected us. I
Mm-hmm.
was still searching for what I was expecting from
Right.
my father, a covering, a comforting, a loving. How did you begin to recognize those things or recognize when you were having daddy issues, even to this point? And how are you mastering that? How did this book, Misery in Ministry, help you to navigate those issues?
Well, once again, like I said, it didn't, unfortunately, it came later. But thank God
Mhm.
the revelation came when it did. And again, this all came out through therapy. Things that, I was able to identify. When I did go to therapy, when we'll get into what brought me there this last time.
Mhm.
But what I discovered was, well, no, what the crisis manager said to me was, what you're dealing with is not 2 years worth of stuff. This is over 40 years
Wow.
worth of unresolved issues. So, and I think that's probably why a lot of people don't like the thought of going to therapy, because they really help you to unpack. They really help you. You may go because of an issue today, but they really take you back to try to understand, to help you to understand and see where you were flawed and where you
Right.
got hurt and how you need to make those adjustments for today.
And that's
So,
actually a perfect segue
mhm,
into the next chapter that I want you to talk about, unpacking those things. You have another chapter in the book entitled Demons Resurface. Whew,
right,
Lord, have mercy.
right.
Tell us about that chapter in the book.
Well, in this chapter, I talk about how, gone through the second divorce, and then I was blessed to remarry. And I talk about, how we married, my husband Milton and I. We just celebrated a couple days ago our fourth wedding anniversary. Thank the Lord. But at that time when we first got married, we didn't date long. In fact, we married like 44 days after our first phone conversation. And so, because we both realized at this point in life, we've been married, we've had multiple marriages. We were kind of in the same place of rebuilding. At our age, we felt like, look, we were real honest with each other. Like, this is who I am. This is what I've been through. Hey, he pursued me, so I really was not trying to impress him. He already liked what he saw when he saw me. And I had been through enough to where exactly, I was like, this is me. And I in fact tried to really upfront push him away to, like, uh, but he was direct. He made his calling and election sure. He knew what he wanted. He told me,
Listen,
I'm not trying to be a prayer partner. I'm trying to holler, which was very refreshing because, before him, I dated some jokers, who were very not honest. So, anyway, being married to him, I thought, this was a new life. This was, a man of God, and things were different, and he had a good job, and we both had good jobs, and we were rebuilding, and I just wanted it to be not perfect but good. I wanted the house to be perfect for him. He's a trucker and he's on the road a lot. And I just wanted things to be right. So I worked so hard, to make sure things were comfortable for him. But there were some differences that, came up in our marriage. Differences of just like how to run the house, just how to just the stuff that you would have figured out if you had actually had a long courtship. But those things didn't, we didn't take the time to figure those things out. And they may seem minor and minute, but what happened was, not understanding how, specifically he liked things cleaned, or the way he liked his laundry, his work clothes, or things like that. It made me feel like everything that I'm doing is not good enough.
Wow.
It's not, and in my mind, I'm not good enough. And so again, that's all a part of some unresolved stuff that had nothing to do with him. What happened, and then too, this guy is very loud. I'm so glad he's, calmed down in the other room now, because him and his dog, they're really loud.
Don't talk about
So
Ezra like that.
yes, they're loud. So but I've had issues with abrupt loud noises because my father didn't live with us, but he would come to our house. He would show up, and all of a sudden, I wake up in the middle of the night, startled because he was beating my mother, and I'm like, where did he even come from? So loud noises really were triggers for me. Well, there was a situation, and it's in the book. I won't go into all of the detail, but the situation, it caused a big argument between us.
Mhm.
And when it happened, I screamed at him, and I just told him, "Shut up, shut up!" And it's not about this; it's about that. And I was screaming, and I had to get away from him. And I went to the store, and he called me. He said, "Do you think you might have PTSD?" I was like, I've never been in the military. I had no idea people experience PTSD outside of being, serving in the military. Um, After that, some other things took place, and it took me to what I call, the only way I can describe it is a fog. And that fog is where I become suicidal. And I didn't understand what was going on. And at that point, I knew I needed to get back to a doctor. I needed to get back in therapy because I tried it before, but I didn't follow through. So those demons resurfaced after what looked like, I was starting over and having a good life. But the demons they were lying dormant because
Right. And
I swept them under the rug.
they were I was getting ready to say that, like you said, they were swept under the rug, and things, when they are not taken care of, when they are not addressed, we will something in our lives will happen that will rattle those boxes in the attic, that will
Yep.
pick up some dust from up under that rug to let
Right.
us know that those things are still there. I'm so thankful that you were so transparent in a way of even talking about PTSD, because we don't understand that sometimes things in life, events in life, uh,
Right.
tragedy in life, it can cause some PTSD in us. And while we're yet trying to function, while we're yet trying to find out who we are, and then as ministers, we are looking for a break. We are looking for the healing, just as we're preaching it, we're looking for it
Right.
as well. Um, you talked about therapy. You talked about how that was a safe place for you and how it evoked a new beginning. That's something that you talk about in the book as well. I think that is so important to understand that even as ministers, the message that you give in this book, there are some things that we are going to go through, not always by our choice, but sometimes by our own doings as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to get to a place where we decide we want a new beginning, the
Right.
way that you did, in making the decision to say, you know what, I think I better start therapy back over again. I think I better give this another try. One thing that I love about this book is that though it talks about the trials and the obstacles and going through misery in ministry, it is a book of hope.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we go through those things, hope is not lost. Love is not lost. You are not lost.
Right.
I am yet who God says that I am. Talk to us about your new beginning.
Well, like I said, um, therapy, it taught me how to live, because I didn't know how to continue to live. I was so ready to check out. But therapy taught me how to have experiences, or when bad experiences come up, how to address them, but how to keep functioning and
Mhm.
not check out. And I knew this time, because when I had the issues of suicide, and I went to therapy before. I didn't stick with the plan that was given to me. I kept preaching and kept preaching, and then I would preach. You know how we do? We preach about, we preach our testimony. But I remember one time preaching and then being in the car. Now I'm gonna cry. Being in the car with my son and how hurt he was that I was even, he didn't realize how damaged I was.
Wow.
And it was like he was saying, you were gonna leave me. And so I knew this time I didn't want to leave my son. I didn't want to leave my family. I didn't want to leave my friends, but I needed help. I needed help to know how to live even under the hardest circumstances. And so that's my new beginning is I got the help that I needed to know how to navigate this crazy life, this crazy world we live in without, wanting to check out. I'm here on this show tonight because I learned that I am valuable. I learned how to change my thinking. I learned that my worth wasn't predicated upon how many uh, flyers I could be on Facebook. I learned that it didn't matter if I was preaching the house down or ministering directly to one, that God had purpose and He's not done with me. The mere fact that I'm still here,
Yes.
God isn't done with me.
Mm-mm.
And I learned how to let go of image and be authentic and true to myself. And that was a conflict even in my marriage because my husband didn't understand me saying, I don't care what people say. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care what people think. But he had to learn that and understand about me because when I cared about what people said and when I cared about what people thought, those were the things that messed me up. But I learned how to step away from the crowd, step away from the accolades so that I could just bond with God in a whole different way so that I could still be here.
I love you.
I
And
love
I'm
you
so
so much.
thankful for your transparency. I'm so listen, we said we was not gonna cry tonight. And I'm
Right,
trying to hold this makeup together, okay?
right.
But I'm so thankful for your transparency. I'm so thankful that this testimony, whether you know it or not, you shared some of those tears so that we didn't have to.
Yeah,
You carried the weight of that cross to keep someone else. You're keeping someone else from having to carry the weight of that cross. Your voice is so necessary in this kingdom. Your voice, and I know I tell you all the time, I'm not doing this for this show. She knows I don't do the pump and circumstance thing. I say it to her all the time that you are so necessary for the kingdom. Your voice is so necessary, not just for women in ministry in the pulpit, but the ones sitting in the pews who feel
yeah,
like they don't have a voice. And how do they talk about what they're doing, or how do they get into what God has called them to do despite what they've seen? Your voice, your tears, thank you for those tears. Thank you for carrying your cross. Thank you for not just showing up for you, but showing up for you so that you could better show up for us. I thank you and I love you so much for that. You're not gonna believe, like, we are really counting down to our hour. This is crazy, right? Because we could do this a whole another hour. Um, in conclusion, I want you to tell us. I believe that God allows us to go through a journey for a reason, right?
yeah.
The mountains that we face, the mantle that we're given, the momentum that it takes, the movement that's necessary. talk to us about misery in ministry and how those things propelled you to where you are today. And what are some tools that we can have, that we can use in order to continue to walk in our purpose despite the misery that we've experienced?
I think the best thing to do is to be real. Be real. Don't pretend that it didn't happen. If it happened, accept it, but move on and learn how to move on. Misery taught me, and I'm gonna go and like I learned how to preach in 2 minutes. So let me go. let me just go into bringing it home. How misery turned into my mantle. Misery sparked this momentum for me to keep going and to keep living, to be able to pull somebody else out of the pit. Misery taught me how to be authentic.
Yes.
It taught me that I didn't have to pretend that I didn't mess up. I didn't have to pretend that I didn't sin. Even as a pastor, I don't have to pretend that, life was perfect for me. I don't have to pretend that I didn't have issues or that I don't have issues. Misery taught me how to be more self-aware and how to self-love, and that it's okay to be selfish sometimes and take care of myself. Misery taught me how to just begin again. It's okay to start over. You fail, okay, get up. And when we talk about the tools, I can't stress enough. There are Christian therapists out there. There are Christian psychologists, psychiatrists. There are Christian uh, marriage family therapists. They're available. But here's the deal: when you go see them, they're not talking about your what you do in church. They don't care about your anointing. They don't care about your call. They don't care about your purpose. They don't care about your image or popularity. They care about your life.
Yes.
They want to help save your life. That's what Jesus. I always think about how Jesus healed the blind man. He could have just spoke a word. He could have just spoke it and his eyes opened up. But what did he do? He spit in the earth. He spit in the dirt, made a salve and rubbed it on his eyes. So to me, that shows me that Jesus is good with using earthly things to bring about healing.
Come on, Kecia.
That's what they're here for. That's what they're here for.
Yes.
It's no more taboo. They're here to help us. And we have to tap in. If you don't have a problem going to the doctor because of cancer issues, diabetes issues, eyeglasses, your back hurt, you go to a chiropractor, go to the doctor for your mind. If you have some messed up thinking that to the place that you want to hurt yourself or hurt somebody else, it's time for you to go get help for that. And you pray. And to the pastors, stop trying to be a therapist if you are not a therapist.
That's right.
Have in your repertoire some resources to send people to. Get in your repertoire resources of Christian therapists, of Christian doctors. They're out there. And if you don't know, guess what? The Google is available. People say go to the Google, but
Go
that's
to
what
the Google.
we're doing. We have to tap in to resources and it's not just pray. I saw somebody post on Facebook the other day and it hurt me, where he was saying depression is real and I'm dealing with depression. And I just read through his comments and then, wow, you just need to give it to Jesus. You just need to pray. You got this. You're strong. No. You need to go get some help.
Go get some help.
If somebody's sitting in your church having a heart attack, you don't tell them just pray and let's just lay hands. No, you call an ambulance, you call a specialist. And that's what we need to do, not be afraid.
Yes.
Because when you go to the crisis manager, and the reason I had to see a crisis manager is because when I went and checked in and they have you asking all these questions to triage you and see where you are, and all of mine showed that I was about to take myself out. The crisis manager told me right now, he said, you came in here, and I didn't even go in there all dolled up, but he said, you came in here like you had it all together. You came in here and you're very articulate and you speak well, but you have some demons.
Wow.
that are fighting you that you need to address. And now I see it in a whole different eye. I see a lot of preachers. I see a lot of male and female preachers up there preaching, and I'm like, they're not addressing. They got some demons. They preaching over it, but they got some demons they really need to, get
Yeah.
healed from.
Yeah.
And that's all. It would be one thing if I had a business of being a therapist or a mental health. I don't, but I am an advocate. I'm saying, please go get the help that you need so that you can be stronger mentally and emotionally. So when you preach, you're preaching from a real place of deliverance. You're
Yes.
preaching from a real place of telling people how God can really, truly bring you out.
It's a scripture in the Bible that says that God wishes that we prosper and be in good health.
Good
He's not
health.
just talking about we liken that to finances and material things,
Mhm.
but he's saying he wants us to be whole. He wants us to be whole, which is what you just addressed, being not just spiritually healthy, mentally, emotionally healthy, but also mentally healthy. And if we are honest, we can't be any of those things when we are not mentally healthy. We've
Right.
learned to just function.
Right.
And that's likened to sweeping that stuff up under the rug. But when the right thing comes at the wrong time,
Mhm. Yep,
it's going to shake it all up.
it
I'm
will.
so thankful that you have been with us on tonight. Before we get out of here, I would like to ask my viewers, and I'm going to release this over to Kecia. She talked earlier about first Kecia's going to let you all know where to go and pre-order her book. That's one. And then also where you can also find it on Amazon.
It's available now.
It is available now, actually,
Right
on
to Amazon.
Amazon right now. Go and get the book. Support this ministry. Support this uh, woman, healthy, whole woman who's sharing her testimony with us. Tonight, I want to also dedicate this show to Victoria and to Patrick. Kecia's going to give us some more information on that and how we can be a support to them. Go ahead, Kecia.
Thank you again for having me and the love that you have for me and my family. It means so much to us. Like I said, I've been carrying the mantle of kind of being that stabilizer in the family. But as I said, Patrick and Victoria were hurt tragically by his estranged wife. And, as a result, it left Victoria with a leg amputated and some other serious injuries that she's still recovering from. Thankfully, she was able to come home from being in the hospital since May 10th and enduring about, I think, by the time she was released, 34 surgeries. So she had some serious injuries that she's still, recovering from. And then Patrick, he's healing from the stab wounds, both in his leg and in his back. But he also has custody now of his 4 children, and so they have to begin again. And so and it takes a lot, and it's been taking a lot. It's been taking a village of so many people who have reached out and wanted to help. You can help. They both have GoFundMe's. There's a GoFundMe for Victoria. It's called Victoria Strong. And then there's a GoFundMe for Patrick called The Dixon New Beginning. And I'm on Facebook, so I can post both of their GoFundMe's on my page, so that anybody who wants to help and be a blessing to them. Again, for those who have already been a blessing, we say thank you, and just please continue to keep our entire family in your prayers.
I'm so thankful for you. Before we get out of here, I want you to let the viewers know where they can contact you personally. I know you don't like being on flyers.
It's overrated.
But someone may need your wisdom, your anointing, and your touch.
Okay.
let the viewers know how they can contact you, what your social media platforms are, and then where to go on Amazon to pick up this amazing book, Misery in Ministry. Go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, Misery in Ministry is now available on Amazon. The ebook and also the paperback. It's on Amazon. You can go right now. It's there. It's ready to be shipped. For those of you who have already pre-ordered, the shipment will be here in the next couple of days, and I'll be autographing and sending them out to you. Um, I am on Facebook. I'm at Kecia C. Taylor, Kecia C. Taylor. I'm on Facebook if you would like to email me. I prefer not to. No, I won't say that. You can message me on Facebook. You can, but if you'd like to email me, if it's going to be more in depth, you can email me at info@diamondpublishingllc.com. Again, that's info@diamondpublishingllc.com.
I am so thankful for our guest. Was this not an amazing show? She is so wonderful. I'm so thankful for you all. We have met our time for the show on today. This is certainly a conversation that needs to continue. I want to encourage and admonish you all to go ahead and order this book. I believe that God has something for you in that. We don't go through things for nothing, and nothing in the kingdom is ever wasted. You need to hear this testimony, read this book, and allow God to heal you in some places that no one knows about except for you and Him. Thank you all for joining us again on tonight. You have here been watching Candid Christian Conversation with our August series, Author Symposium for a Written Word. We will not do a show the first Saturday of September. We will be back again on the third Saturday of September with a new theme and another wonderful guest. I thank you all so much for your support, for your likes, for your shares. Again, remember to go to Amazon and pick up this book, Misery in Ministry by author Kecia C. Taylor and owner, CEO of Diamond Publishing Company. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you on the next Candid Christian Conversations. Have a good night.